We are going to find out the maximum attack damage that Sonic can do to any one enemy in one hit in Sonic Frontiers, and figure out what the strongest move in the game is. I'm going to be checking this out on an unmodded basic version of the game on PlayStation 4. Naturally, if we're going to be going for maximum damage, the first step is to get that attack stat up to max, and then we can start heading down to Kronos Island and slapping some enemies about with different moves to see what hits hardest. I'm doing Kronos Island because the enemies have simpler AI and I can't be bothered with them shielding like absolute cowards, and this is just going to make things a lot smoother. You get the same damage on each enemy regardless of their health bar. A Kronos Island soldier takes 10 to 11 damage at attack level 1 and dies in one hit, whereas it takes 40 to 41 damage at attack level 99 and still dies in one hit. So the numbers will be nice and clear. Fun fact, that 40 to 41 damage that it's doing is roughly a 375 to 410% damage increase off of your level 1 attack stat. Now we're testing each move in Sonic's arsenal and finding the single most powerful attack possible. This means the highest number that appears on the screen while dealing damage, not as part of a combo or multi-hit attack. So that means moves like Sonic Boom, Cyclone Kick, Homing Shot and Cross Slash, whilst cool and dealing a lot of damage over time, do not deal enough single hit damage. I actually didn't realise that Homing Shot was a multi-hit move until this video, which is really interesting because it's lots of those little numbers adding up. It's not a single bit of damage, and that's what we're trying to find out. So those ones are excluded. So those big single hit attacks, that leaves these attacks on the table. We've got the Loop Kick, we've got Wild Rush, Stomp Attack, Grand Slam, and Recovery Smash. Now fun fact number 2, I didn't think it through with the Kronos soldiers, and some of these attacks weren't able to be performed on them because you have to do them as part of a combo, and because everything dies in one hit, it made things a little bit complicated. But I then went and tested on every single enemy in the game, and I actually discovered that all that happens is that their health bar changes, they don't actually have any damage reduction. So I was able to go to other enemies where I could do those combos and then get those attacks off successfully. I also found that there is a small window of variance around 10 to 12 damage points with each large attack, so I'll refer to it as a damage roll, as there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason for a specific damage number triggering. So let's get into those tests. First up is Loop Kick. This is a great looking attack where Sonic does a very grandiose spin in the air and then comes in for a single smash with his foot, and it deals a high roll of 153 damage from what I've been able to find. One of the easiest attacks to pull off reliably, and we're getting a close to 4 times damage multiplier from a standard level 99 attack. Wild Rush is next, and this one had me a bit curious. It's tricky to pull off in a fight, so would you be rewarded for that with some higher damage? I actually got a high roll of 153 damage again, which is a massive amount, but also the exact same as Loop Kick. Stomp Attack comes next, and this is nowhere near as technically demanding as the others, as you just hold a button midway through an attack. On PlayStation, that's the circle button. I found this one was dealing a slightly lower amount of damage and 120 to 125 points. Nothing huge here, but essentially a 3 times multiplier on the normal attack at level 99, but it's nowhere near as technically demanding as the others, so it's not surprising it does a bit less damage. So far, we've seen some great attack power here, and after some repeated tests, I actually think I've stumbled upon something to do with the way that damage works in Sonic Frontiers. You see, these big attacks are dealing roughly the same amounts of damage, but certain attacks are doing one level, certain attacks are doing another level, so I've categorized them. Now my rough thoughts here are that it's to do with the button prompt. The simpler ones like Stomp Attack and Cyclone Kick are dealing less damage overall and are being done by holding a single button during a combo. I'm calling these Category 1 moves, and at level 99 I've seen them cap at about 125, which is just over that 3 times multiplier from a normal attack. Then there are Category 2 moves. Pressing a button in tandem with a trigger button procs these attacks, and it includes things like Loop Kick and Cross Slash with its combined total damage, albeit there are more complicated ones to trigger like Wild Rush as well. These moves are hitting varied amounts around the 150 mark with a cap that I've witnessed of 153 damage points, which is just under a 4 times multiplier. But there is one more category. There are attacks that are able to be performed during combat, but they have specific circumstances that need to trigger them, and they need to be done under time-sensitive button prompts. I'm of course talking about Grand Slam and Recovery Smash. After freeing Amy, Sonic learns the Grand Slam technique, which you can activate after parrying an enemy attack. Recovery Smash is the final technique on the skill list and is activated by pressing a button after being hit with an attack. These attacks hit hard, and when I say hard, I mean they cap at 327 damage. That is nearly an 8 times multiplier on a standard level 99 attack. Now it was about this point that I thought I had missed something huge. there is a specific part of Sonic's skill set that directly affects attack damage. You see, Sonic has an ability that is unlocked early called Phantom Rush, and this gives an attack boost of 1.2 times, which is 20%, which would theoretically increase Sonic's attack power for every move. However, that 20% bonus wouldn't increase any single attack damage enough in order to overtake what a Category 3 can pull off. So I only bothered trying this with Grand Slam and Recovery Smash because that would be where the maximum damage is. Here's fun fact number 3, it didn't actually take into account that 20% multiplier. Even under the specific conditions of Phantom Rush being activated, I could only get it to hit for 323 damage, which was the second highest roll. So I do believe that Grand Slam and Recovery Smash are not affected by Phantom Rush. It does seem that they have a flat damage multiplier instead, which makes sense considering that they are only able to be triggered under those specific conditions and aren't part of your general attacking abilities and normal combat roster. So Sonic's most powerful attacks are what I class the Category 3s, Grand Slam and Recovery Smash, and they can deal a massive 327 hit points of damage. This means that you can one-shot pretty much anything on Kronos Island, and essentially any non-Guardian, you can take them down in almost one hit, even the ones on Aramis Island. Obviously, as I said, they can only be triggered under those specific conditions, but how cool is that? 327 hit points of damage is the maximum that Sonic is doing, but I think that we can squeeze a little bit more damage out of him. It's time to go Super. Super Sonic has some slightly different attacks and different multipliers than standard Sonic, and I think it's important to get a full picture of Sonic's potential. Now, most of this testing is done on Supreme since it's easier to access at endgame, albeit when DLC Wave 1 releases we can try it out on the other bosses in the Battle Rush mode. However, after studying plenty of boss videos, it does seem that there is no damage reduction on bosses again, aside from a bit of health gating prior to the Sniper QTE on Supreme and other QTEs on other bosses, so beating the crap out of Supreme again and again is going to suffice. I decided to test out those same massive single hit damage attacks and see if anything changed. First up, Loop Kick. My initial test came to around 3092 damage, which was weird, but this was how I discovered the health gating. After more tests, I got this at a whopping 8960 damage. Incredible stuff. Then Wild Rush. This superpowered Category 2 attack hits for similar to Loop Kick, with the highest cap I got being 8996. Literally just under 9000. I'm so disappointed because, you know, memes. The Stomp attack, I was curious to see if this did less damage, and it did. It did a maximum of 7264 damage, which lends itself again to the idea of categories of attacks translating over to Supersonic as well, which, yeah, is what I expected. So what about those Category 3s then? Well, Recovery Smash isn't performable with Supersonic because he can't actually take damage. However, we can definitely Grand Slam, and you've actually got a unique animation for Grand Slam, which is awesome. To no one's surprise, this did the most amount of damage, but you know what was surprising? How big that bloody number was. So for normal Sonic, Grand Slam was doing 327 hit points of damage, and that translated to around a 2.7 multiplier to the highest damage we saw from other attacks. However, with Supersonic, after repeated attempts, I got a number of 24,516, which is ridiculous, but not the highest number I saw. You see, I found this video by Craighelch3617 taking on Giganto with maximum attack, and they got a slightly higher roll than me at 24,584 damage. In this same video, other attacks that I had performed on Supreme were doing less damage, meaning that the damage rolls were just a bit different, but that means that the highest sheer damage that Supersonic can therefore do in one single hit is around 24,584 damage. There is a possibility that it could be slightly higher, albeit through testing I couldn't beat that number, and that settles it. Sonic himself can perform hits of 327 damage, whereas Supersonic is dealing 75 times that amount with the same attack, rolling 24,584 as a damage number. I mean, you can see here just how much that does to Supreme's health bar, which is absolutely nuts. These are the highest amounts of damage we've gotten out of Sonic and Supersonic in the base game. One more fun fact for you, my prediction was that Wild Rush was going to do the most amount of damage, and that was wrong. That was oh so wrong. But I thought this was really interesting. This was a really fun thing to test, and I was so astonished to see that you had those different attacks doing similar damage rolls. It's really interesting that there do seem to be 3 categories of finisher move. I like to call them finisher moves anyway. I love that we're still learning cool things about Sonic Frontiers. It's absolutely amazing, and there's plenty to come thanks to these new waves of DLC. So if you want to learn more, make sure that you Grand Slam that subscribe button, and then check this video out next, because this is going to have loads of information on the upcoming Sonic DLC waves.